So first off, I'm Mac. I'm a content strategist at OP Labs, and I'm very excited about today's space for a variety of reasons. First off, this is the inaugural episode of OP Radio. So the idea behind OP Radio is to have an open-ended discussion on a wide variety of topics related to optimism and the surrounding optimism ecosystem. There is so much going on over here at Optimism every week, and OP Radio is a chance for us to talk about anything and everything related to optimism. And the idea is that we'll have it same time, same day, every week. So we look forward to seeing you here every week, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. UTC. The second reason I'm super excited about today is because of our guest. So we have Optimism Marketplace Quix with us today. I couldn't think of a better guest for the inaugural episode of OP Radio. So super excited to have them. But before we get into all that, I'm going to give a colleague that I have here with me. I have a few colleagues from OP Labs a chance to introduce themselves real quick. So Annie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Annie. You might have seen me in a couple of these spaces. I used to talk to a lot of our NFT projects as part of OP Labs. But today we actually have someone new doing that. So I'll pass it back to Mac to introduce her properly.
That is right. We do have a new optimist in the room. Joanna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yes, super excited to be here. As everyone mentioned, I am relatively new to Optimism, just joined as BD lead of NFT and DAO. I'm based in New York City, and I joined from Coinbase NFT, joined this space back in 2017, just really being a big fan of what OP team has been doing, and great to be in the company of all the Quix fans here too. So
thanks, Joanna. So glad to have you here. So that was interesting because you said Quix, and I've been saying Quix. Maybe we could get the final word from Mark here. Which is it, Mark? Is it Quix or Quix?
Officially, it's Quix, but we're all for, I don't know, decentralized social consensus. So I say Quix, but you can say whatever you want.
There you go. Yeah. So formerly Quixotic. So do you want to briefly mention that, Mark? A lot of us who are familiar with Quix used to know you by Quixotic, but you recently went through a rebrand. And I've heard that story, but why don't you tell everybody else? Because I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah. So we launched our NFT marketplace in December 2021. Hard to believe that was almost like 10 months ago now. And we picked the name Quixotic because we thought it was fun. It kind of means overly optimistic. It's kind of unique. But the problem was it didn't scale super well. It's kind of hard to say, kind of hard to spell. And so we decided to drop the otic off of the end and just call it Quix. It's kind of funny. There's a crypto exchange called Poloniex that followed a similar trajectory, except they're still called Poloniex, but people call them Polo because what is Poloniex? So yeah, about a month ago, we officially decided to shorten it to Quix. We got a much simpler domain name. So it's qx.app. And it's kind of still fits because Optimism is much faster than layer one Ethereum.
Yeah, and I think the first time you told me that story, I think there was a certain crypto influencer that maybe didn't pronounce the name quite right. Is that right? Yeah. Is that what made you think about maybe shortening it?
Yeah, it was Anthony Sassano of the Daily Gway. He gave us a shout out on his podcast, but the most memorable part of the bit was he was like really unsure about the name. And we were like, no, we want to talk about Optimism NFT is not the name.
Yeah. Well, the name may have changed. The name is now shorter and simpler, but nothing else has changed. It's the same great team, same great NFT marketplace. Speaking of which, I think a lot of us here on the call are very familiar with Quix, but Mark, can you, for the benefit of somebody who's listening to this and has never heard of Quix before, can you give us an overview on what Quix is?
Yeah, we are the biggest NFT marketplace in Optimism today, and we're a secondary marketplace. So if you have an NFT collection that you deploy in Optimism, we'll index it, and people can view those on our platform. We also have a Launchpad. So if you don't know how to make your own smart contract or NFT project, you can use our Launchpad, which will help you deploy your NFT contract and make a mint page for you. And we have a bunch of other things in the works that I'm sure we'll talk about later, especially this NFT Bridge that's been coming for a long time. And then we also have some other interesting takes on how NFTs can be used in platform and how like soulbound tokens can be used in the future. But the Optimism NFT marketplace is kind of the shortest way that we describe who we are.
Yeah, there you go. Optimism NFT marketplace. And yeah, we'll get into some of the other stuff like the bridge later in the call. But first off, I'm curious about this Launchpad. Can someone say someone wants to put some art on chain, but they have like no technical chops, is the Launchpad something that they can use to get some NFTs launched?
Yes, depending on your definition of technical. So
That's right. There's a few different definitions. That's good to call out.
Yeah, so you don't need to be a programmer. The way the Launchpad works is it is a self-custodial smart contract deployer, which is a fancy way of saying like the artist will own their smart contracts, which is different than say like how OpenSea would do it and how certain other, I think Foundation also used to not have self-custodial smart contracts and move to it. But the idea is you deploy from your own wallet the smart contract that is the NFT collection. And for people who are new to the NFT space, collection and a smart contract are kind of synonymous in most cases. So you deploy it and then we make a mint page for you. The only thing you have to bring is the art files, and then it can be a little bit technical to generate the rarities and attributes. So you might want to use like a tool like NFTinator to generate the rarities. That's kind of up to you, the creator. And we're actually investing a lot more in our Launchpad soon. So we're trying to make it much easier to add rarities and much easier to launch like other types of NFTs besides ones that are like meant for trading, so like special like collab type NFTs we're working on. So that's a little bit about the Launchpad. The other thing is we'll, allow you to have like an allow list or set aside a certain number of tokens for like the development team and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, with anything with technology, you're going to have to, have a little bit of technical chops, but you're really like lowering the barrier of entry for creators who want to put some of this art on chain. Is that safe to say?
For sure. Yeah. You don't need to know how to program at all.
Nice. Andrew, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in there and say I fall very much on the non-technical side of things, and I was in charge of handling the documentation for this. So it's any sort of consolation, I've been able to run through and upload an NFT and deploy a contract through the Launchpad. So if anyone, has any sort of trepidations, definitely understand that if I can do it, you could definitely do it. Yeah, as Mark mentioned, the most difficult part is probably making the metadata, but then the rest is laid out very, very clearly for you in our docs, and we're always happy to help people launch as well if they need it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Drew. There you have it, folks. Testimonial right there. You don't need to be Kelvin Fichter. Anybody can figure this stuff out. Okay, so I'm going to transition here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to give a little elevator pitch on Optimism. Okay, so again, I don't want to assume everybody knows what Quix is or what Optimism is. And before you think I'm just here shilling Optimism, trust me, this does relate to Quix, but I'm going to give you the quick Optimism elevator pitch. We've been honing this thing. We've been working on it. So let me know what you think. So what is Optimism? Optimism is a fast, stable, and scalable L2 blockchain that takes everything you love about Ethereum and turbocharges it. Built as a minimal extension to existing Ethereum software, Optimism's EVM equivalent architecture scales your Ethereum apps without surprises. Optimism is more than a blockchain. It's also an experiment in sustainable ecosystem funding fueled by protocol revenue, donating 100% of sequencer profits to funding projects in the ecosystem via retroactive public goods funding. We're scaling Ethereum's present to provide funding for its future. So that is the Optimism elevator pitch. And the reason that I read that to you is because, Mark, you wrote this really good mirror post a while back, and I remember reading it when you first published it, and it really touched on a lot of the things that we think makes Optimism great, and I think the team just really loved seeing those things sort of echoed or repeated from outside. So I did want to just touch on that article. Mark, do you remember that article? Do you know the one I'm referring to?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I released that like maybe a few days before we launched the marketplace in December 2021.
Yeah. And so for people who haven't read, it's like, Mark, you're basically like kind of walking through your thought process of where to, you were, I think you were already sort of, you knew you wanted to do an NFT project, but you were deciding which chain. And this is sort of your thought process on deciding which chain to deploy on. You ended up choosing Optimism. I wonder if you could, take us through kind of what the TLDR, if you could.
Yeah, when I started our company, it was not the NFT marketplace for Optimism yet. It was just an NFT company that focused on creating cool NFT collections and experiences. And we, throughout 2021, had deployed multiple collections to mainnet Ethereum. And it was funny because I had started deploying NFTs probably around April, more like maybe June 2021. And gas prices were like 8 Gwei. It was like $10 to deploy your NFT collection on Ethereum. And by the time it had turned into the fall, like gas prices were like 100 or 150 Gwei. The price of ETH itself had also gone up quite a lot. So you're looking at like maybe a couple $100 to deploy the collection. You're looking at like $50 to transfer it. And we had started an NFT community focused on music. And we had spent thousands of dollars on gas fees, and it was like completely crazy. And it was a bummer because we were like planning to use our treasury to do all sorts of stuff, especially like on-chain things. For example, we had this idea of like voting for who should receive grants from our fund. It was called Music Fund. And we were giving away money to musicians. And for example, we moved the voting off chain because like who's gonna pay $10 to vote in that way? I noticed with a lot of other NFT projects, there's a game called Feudals, which is a really simple NFT game from 2021. And I watched them slowly move their whole game off chain. Like it started on chain where like you would do a little encounter with like a forest creature and something would happen on chain that would determine the outcome of the encounter. They moved that off chain. They moved even the staking off chain. Like basically the whole thing moved off chain because of the gas fees. And I was like, this is crazy. Why are we like, what are we even doing if the gas fees on Ethereum are so high that we're just moving it back into like Web2 systems? And so I looked at Polygon, I looked at Solana. At that time, when I was looking, Optimism still had like a whitelist for apps. But I was really excited about Optimism because I had met you guys at the Scaling Ethereum Hackathon in March 2021. And I saw that soon they're going to be removing their whitelist. And I saw that a couple NFT collections had already launched. I see Distraction Boy. There was the OP Bunnies collection that had launched and the OptiPunks collection that had launched. And there was no place to trade them. So you just, in the Discord, people were like messaging each other, like, I'll send you this much ETH for this, for your OptiPunk. And that's how I got my first OptiPunk actually, is I was like, I'll send you some ETH if you send it back to me. And I was like, well, we as a community need to scale Ethereum, and the Optimism community already has NFT excitement, but there's no infrastructure in place. And so me and our team worked really hard in just a few weeks in December to put the initial version of the site together. And we launched just a few days before Christmas.
Nice. I did not know that about the OptiPunk. So you contacted OptiPunks and said, I'll send you ETH if you send me an OptiPunk?
Yeah, like I was in the OptiPunks Discord, and yeah, it was funny because there's a lot of speculation about what the floor price was, but if things are not on chain, like even when people are trading them, you don't know what the floor price is. But yeah, I was like, does anyone want to sell me theirs? And then someone came to my DMs, and I had no idea who they were. You can tell it's like really early in Web3 because people are just generally so friendly as opposed to like other parts of the internet. But well, yeah, I just like, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, luckily, OptiPunks dealt in good faith, and they got their ETH, and you got your OptiPunk, which is amazing because they're, good actors. But it's nice when you don't have to do the transaction in that way, right? It's nice when there's a marketplace that serves as a marketplace. You can perform these sort of interactions trustlessly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's totally not scalable to be doing, because it wasn't official. Like I just messaged a person and I was like, I'll send you money.
Yeah, and you luckily did not get scammed because they were good actors.
Exactly. Yeah. And just to more specifically answer your question about like why optimism? What about the article? I think it was the novelty of like the Optimism team's approach around like public goods funding. I think the origins as Plasma Group, which was a nonprofit focused on scaling Ethereum with plasma channels. I thought that story was like super interesting and novel, and it seemed refreshing in a time when like there were tons of alt layer ones launching at the end of 2021. So everyone's like, oh, we're making our own blockchain and launching our own token. And I thought it was really interesting that Optimism was, yeah, really thoughtful and not trying to be a copycat.
Yeah, I'm gonna read from that article if you don't mind, Mark, because it was just so well written. We liked it a lot. So in this article that Mark published, he wrote, in a layer 2, I'm looking for the same things I love about Ethereum: the legitimacy, the strong ecosystem of developer tools and cool projects, the open source nature, the permissionless innovation, the infinite composability, the WAGME ethos. The project that achieves all of these for me is Optimism. The team are longtime Ethereans genuinely committed to the public good. They pioneered the entire space of L2s with Plasma Group. They've already achieved EVM equivalence, so L1 builders can seamlessly deploy. World-class developers study and contribute. Oh, sorry guys, my screen just went blank. Study and contribute to its code base for free. Vitalik himself takes advice from the co-founders. In a world of opportunists and copycats, Optimism genuinely aspires to be something novel and valuable, and then they plan to let that value flow back to the community. Recently, in a Twitter Spaces, co-founder Ben Jones said that they're scaling more than just transactions per second. They're scaling Ethereum values. I love that. But how do we scale values and culture? With memes, of course. So that is a segment from Mark's article, and he went on to build a platform to disseminate the memes. How are the memes doing on Quix right now, Mark? How are we feeling about the art?
Yeah, the memes are doing well. This week has actually been our like highest activity week in the history of the platform since the launch of OP Quest yesterday. This week we've had almost $1 million of trading volume on the platform, which is really exciting. So the memes are doing well. We have this, yeah, we can get into the specific collections later, but yeah, the memes are doing well.
I concur that the memes are doing well. I remember a time, just like you, Mark, where there just wasn't a whole lot of art on Optimism, and it's so good to see that change. I think we've seen a lot of really cool projects come out that I'm super stoked on. Okay, so I promise I'm somewhat done shilling Optimism. What I do want to know more about, though, is what sets Quix apart. So there's a lot of other NFT marketplaces. Mark, if you were to distinguish Quix from those other NFT marketplaces, what would be the key factors?
Yeah, if you want to trade Optimism NFTs, we're the place for that. So that's that's the biggest factor. Other marketplaces support it, like Tofu, and of course, OpenSea is going to be supporting Optimism eventually. But we have all the activity today for Optimism, and we're also very involved in the Optimism community. So we're one of the biggest delegates in the Optimism governance system, and we're committed to making Optimism a great home for NFTs. So let's say eventually OpenSea adds Optimism. It probably won't be a priority for them because all their activity is on mainnet Ethereum. So if you want to grow the Optimism NFT ecosystem, then you'll want to be trading on Quix because that's what we're focused on. We're also focused on layer 2 specific use cases. So we're working on providing like great support for non-financial NFTs. We think layer 2s are probably going to be a great home for like soulbound tokens or non-transferable NFTs and governance NFTs. So we're working on a badge rank system so you can see how valuable your NFTs are, even if you can't trade them. So maybe they don't have a financial value, but maybe they have like a status or clout value. So let's say you collected an NFT for contributing to the Optimism code base. I know Kelvin or Smart Contracts, some people know him on Twitter, will sometimes give you an NFT on Optimism for contributing to the Optimism code base. If you want that to be a soulbound token, then it won't have a floor price, but it could have like a badge rank where you can see how many people are featuring that badge on their profile and stuff like that. Other NFT use cases that we see being really interesting is composable NFTs. So NFTs, that combine with each other. There's a developer named Austin Griffith who launched a collection called Optimistic Loogies. That was also one of the first NFT collections on Optimism, where you could have a little cartoon character guy who kind of looks like I don't know, just a, a little bean or something. And you can put a bow tie on him. You can put him in a boat or something like that. And that's really
I
interesting.
think it's a loogie, right?
A loogie, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a loogie.
Okay.
But yeah, so composable NFTs, all these layer 2 use cases, we're committed to kind of pushing forward. So that's kind of the pitch for Quix in particular.
Yeah. So to sum it up, I mean, you mentioned a lot there, but I think one of the bigger things is very optimism aligned.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so speaking about, some of these projects, some of these NFTs, earlier, you mentioned collections. I tend to think, collection, you said a collection was synonymous with something. I forget what you mentioned, but I also think a collection is synonymous with a community. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like you guys have really started to cultivate some really strong community that are kind of using Quix as like a hub, if you will. I'm curious, how that experience is going, how you've managed to do this, and how you've managed to cultivate these communities, and how you think where they stand right now.
Yeah, honestly, got to give almost all the credit to the creators on our platform who are really great community builders. In particular, there's a really strong Thai community on Optimism. So there's a lot of creators in Thailand in particular. The creators of Board Town and Optimism have built really strong communities. There's some really fantastic AI artists. So there's Fractal Visions, who's creating AI art on the platform. There's the OptiChads community, who have put they're very memey, the Chad meme, and they put kind of public goods and wellness at the center of their community, which has been really fun. And yeah, it's interesting to see the values of the marketplace and the chain that you're on reflected in the communities that choose it. So a lot of the NFT communities on Optimism are very excited about public goods. They're often kind of really into learning about details of the protocol. That's probably a layer 2 thing, where with technology, a lot of the first people to adopt the technology are developers. So we see a lot of developers who are really interested in Optimism. And yeah, it's really been a co-creation with kind of the vision that the Optimism team created, and then the platform that we created, and then the individual takes that each creator is bringing. And also shout out to Andrew on our team, who's our main community person. Of course, he's always sliding in people's DMs, taking calls. Yeah, Andrew, do you have any thoughts on community?
I think you nailed it there, Mark. It's kind of like a natural science in that the community isn't created, it's been discovered or uncovered, if you will. But yeah, no, it's been really cool. When you talk to people outside of the Optimism ecosystem, and I'm constantly, talking with developers, creators, trying to pitch people on Optimism and Quix in general, it's really cool to see that when people are on board, their minds are already made up kind of before I ever even come in and talk to them. So again, yeah, I think it's a testament to all the offerings of the communities here already, and then all the offerings of Optimism as well. So we just provide a little home for that, and a little bit of infrastructure for people to come and have some structure. But it's been really, really cool to see the communities. Community is what the community makes of it. And they've been able to come in and really cultivate a strong ecosystem.
Yeah, I like that. So, just like Quix is providing a platform for these different communities, Optimism is providing the platform for the platforms for the communities. And something you said, Mark, I agree with, and I find really interesting, is a lot of these NFT projects have made public goods funding a focal point of their project, which they don't have to, right? There's no rule on Optimism that you have to care about public goods funding, or you have to set some of that aside for public goods. But I think they're just kind of picking up what we're putting down, and they like it, and they want to be a part of it. So that's really cool to see this sort of grassroots culture taking root if you will. You also mentioned something else that I thought was interesting, Mark, which is that you have a large percentage of the users of Quix, as I understand it, are from Thailand. I think it's maybe even above 50%. Do you have specific numbers on that?
We do have specific numbers, and they're all different depending on like who's visiting the site every day. And it's large group in Thailand. I don't think it's quite above 50%, but we also have a lot of people in China and Southeast Asia generally. So
Yeah, no, I think Mac, you kind of were asking a similar line of questioning there, but yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised when I was looking at the, the web traffic data. Like I think the one that I saw was like 30% Thai and 10% Taiwan, and another similar percentage in Turkey. Yeah, just really it warms my heart that like Quix team is really collaborating with global, innovators, right? The creators all over the world. I guess just out of curiosity, personally, is there a kind of community expansion strategy going forward, like in terms of geography or any specific, in terms of community building, I guess, yeah. Is there like community events coming out in these regions or other regions that you guys want to really push forward in?
Andrew, how is the community ambassadors program going, right? Because we have moderators in different languages, right?
That's actually been on hold a little bit recently, but yeah, I mean, obviously we'd love to get on the ground anywhere we can go, especially with strong community here. I would say, and something I actually kind of wanted to say about the collections earlier in general is that we're definitely looking for like content first. We think like the quality and the caliber of the collection matters a lot, and the quality of the teams are great, and no matter where you're from, we'll be there to help you deploy and come to Quix and Optimism as well. We're just looking to create the most robust, most in-depth ecosystem that we can. So any and everyone are always welcome, and we'll find you if you're out there looking for optimism for sure.
Yeah, our recent spike in activity actually was kicked off by a mirror post from someone in China, and I don't speak Chinese, so I had to get the Google Translate version. But yeah, we're seeing that the Optimism community is pretty highly decentralized, which for me is really exciting because, well, I hope I get to visit. I've never been to Thailand or China. So I hope I get to, I hope the first time I go is to hang out with NFT people.
Yeah, there you go. You already got some friends over there you can visit. I also just love this international aspect of crypto and of these NFT communities on Optimism. And it makes sense in a way because like Optimism is super Ethereum aligned, and one of Ethereum's key tenets is decentralization. So it's only fitting that these collections and these collectors are from all over the world. I just think it's really cool. Speaking of collections, Mark, you have a new one that came out recently. It's called the OPOG NFT Collection. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, for sure. And it's actually kind of a series of collections. So beginning in September, we decided with the name change, we were going to give out free NFTs to people who had been with us through certain events. So for anyone who traded on Optimism, as in like bought or sold an NFT on Quix before our name change, you got the early Optimist NFT, which is a little robot guy. I think his name can be Tim or Timmy. Actually, it was Andrew who said Tim, and I said Timmy because it's like Optimism. So we have the robot guy, and he's kind of been our mascot. And so we have for anyone who's traded. And then we released the Wrecked Friends. Actually, a huge shout out to Optimism, the NFT community. Their developers have been able to like review our smart contracts. And yeah, we had this like scary exploit happen in June where we're able to return all user funds. But it was a pivotal moment. It was a news story. And so we gave a Wrecked Friends NFT to anyone who was involved with that. We gave OP Orcas to people who had traded a certain amount on our platform. It was kind of like whales NFT. And we're going to be releasing more throughout September. And we hope that, for me, the vision of NFTs is that they can be like a quilt of reputation, kind of like if you're a Pokemon trainer and you have all the badges from all the gyms that you visited, or you're a Boy Scout or Girl Scout, and you have all the badges from all the things you've done. And so this is our way of saying, like, you know, these people have been involved in Optimism and Quix very early. And what's exciting is once you have these badges or, you know, reputation kind of NFTs, then you can use them in your platform. So like, if we wanted to enable some feature, we could enable it only for people who have like one of the early NFTs or something like that, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of video games, like items that you would get when you like complete a quest and that sort of mark your character's history. And NFTs provide this use case sort of in the real world or on chain to do the same thing, to sort of demonstrate where a certain individual or address has been and what they've done. And there's lots of interesting use cases that opens up.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say that we plan to lean into that for sure. So in the future, I hope Quix becomes a sort of pluggable platform where, like, if you have certain NFTs, maybe that opens like certain possibilities for you.
Cool. More on that later. So something else that you've been working on recently, Mark, is an NFT bridge, right? And so my understanding is this is a bridge that you can bridge your Ethereum L1 NFTs to Optimism. Is that a good description? How about you describe it for me?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So just like you can bridge tokens like ETH or USDC, we want people to be able to bridge their NFTs. This has been a long time coming. So for people in the audience, I assure you, we're almost there. Yeah, we paid a lot of attention to security, and it's been slower than we wanted, but we were able to work with the Optimism team to get the bridge audited by Open Zeppelin. So, you know, couldn't have a more famous auditor than them. And that audit's finished. And so now we're just getting ready for a mainnet deployment. And yeah, the idea is that if you want to scale Ethereum, you don't necessarily want to start over from scratch. So like today, Optimism is very good if you have a new collection, but many of our favorite collections are on layer 1. So what do? It's kind of a little bit contentious, for example, to deploy to like migrate smart contracts. That's like not really cool. And in the NFT world, like I don't see really anyone saying like, and now we're deploying like a completely new contract called Bored Ape contract, but on Optimism. And everyone like, you know, that one's the new Bored Ape. People don't usually do that. So this bridge, what it does is it, on a technical level, helps you escrow your NFT on layer 1 and then mint the corresponding NFT on layer 2. So, and we're working to design our platform in such a way that it's really easy to bridge back and forth between Optimism and Ethereum so that L1 communities can get the benefits of Optimism.
And what would you consider those main benefits to be? Faster and cheaper, I'd hazard to guess?
Yes, faster and cheaper is a short way to say it. But the analogy that I always reach for is that like layer 1 Ethereum is kind of like a car and Optimism is kind of like a plane. And so planes are faster and cheaper sometimes than a car, especially for like long trips. But they also make trips possible that you couldn't do before. And that's what's really exciting to me. So like the lower fees mean that you can add on-chain interactions. So if you wanted to like add staking to your NFT project or add voting, sorry about that. Or if you want to add like voting through like a governance process, you might want to bridge to a layer 2 before enabling these other capabilities because it'll be way cheaper.
Yeah, I like that. So something you said, Mark, I just want to sort of reiterate on, and that's, you know, I think this is still sort of blue ocean, both for if you want to just start an NFT project, but also for these new interesting use cases that we don't even know exactly what they're going to look like yet. But if anybody's, you know, wants to get involved, there's just like so many like interesting things to work on. And yeah, I think that's particularly interesting as it relates to layer 2's kind of what are the new use cases for NFTs going to be?
Definitely. I think reputation NFTs are already a breakout use case where it might not make sense on layer 1 to mint an NFT that's just like a symbol of like, oh, I went there and did a thing, because, you know, it's not really like a $10 thing that you want to do, but it maybe is like a 10-cent thing that you want to do. So reputation NFTs, for example, we've already seen as like a breakout use case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it's like, oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to jump in there too. I think we've seen some things attempted on layer one that sometimes work really well, and other times, because of gas fees and whatnot, haven't worked well. One of which being like companion NFTs or accessory NFTs, which there's a lot of new things to come. But I even think we'll be able to do things we wanted to do even better. Free mints, to mention another one as well, where collections wanted to mint a free accessory, a free little penguin for your pudgy penguin. I think that companion NFT actually minted out in times where people were trying to do free mints and gas went up. It didn't make sense to actually mint the free NFT because of gas fees. So, the analogy I like to draw on is you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can just make it a little easier to spin. And I hope that we'll see, in addition to all the innovations, I think we never really got full closure, at least, some NFT traders like myself, from summer and fall of 2021, where things were, so great and so fun for NFT traders. And I think this will kind of give us another chance at love here to come back in and trade, with reckless abandon, but, responsibly.
I think the old crypto adage / meme, it's still early, applies here.
Absolutely.
For sure, for the L2 space. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So before we sign off, if listeners want to learn more about Quix, where do you recommend is the best place to do so?
Twitter and Discord, for sure. So our Twitter is going to have all the most important announcements, and Discord is going to have all the announcements. So all the little play-by-play you can find in the Discord. And also a lot of really important stuff happens in the communities themselves. So hop into the Discords for the different community projects as well.
Nice. And I also wanted to mention from the Optimism side, I don't know if you guys caught, but yesterday we launched this really cool initiative called Optimism Quests. Optimism Quest is basically you go and do a certain set of actions on chain with a particular project on Optimism. And if you fulfill those actions, you can mint an NFT. So it kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier with badges and reputation. This NFT demonstrates your knowledge of a particular project. And there is a quest in the Optimism Quest for Quix. Mark, do you want to tell people about the Quix Quest?
Yeah, basically you just have to get an NFT on the Quix platform. And what's great about Optimism is they're like really low cost. So I think the minimum is, I don't know, Andrew, do you remember, like $10 or something like that?
Yeah, 0.0099 ETH is the minimum, so roughly 0.01 ETH.
Yeah, join a OP NFT community, and then you also get the badge for completing the quest.
Nice. So you get an NFT and you also get another NFT.
Yeah, was it you who came up with the that's a twofer, that tweet?
That was indeed me. That's a twofer. I don't know if everybody understood it. It's a 2-for-1, folks. That's what I meant. A 2-for-1.
It may actually be a 3-for as well. One of the rewards for participating in the quest is 5 users every user will be entered and 5 winners will be selected to win a Boardtown NFT. So Boardtown is one of the collections and communities that we had mentioned before. We've got a few to give away. So yeah, if you complete the quest, you could potentially get a 3-for-1.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Boardtown. If you haven't heard of them, Boardtown is the first collection that I think was copycatted back to L1. So like someone like stole the art and tried to launch a layer 1 collection with Boardtown. And that's how you know you've made it. Because like your chain usually starts, you're copying L1. And then when L1 people start copying you, that's how you know you have some really cool art.
Oh, I love that. And I love it especially because if you know Optimism, you know we have a few forks ourselves. And I always say forking is the sincerest form of flattery. So as you said, Mark, that's how you know you made it. That's how you know you're good.
Exactly.
Awesome. So yeah, if you're listening to this, I highly recommend you go check out Optimism Quests. Just go to app.optimism.io/quests. There's 18 different quests up there right now. One of them is Quix, and Mark told you how you can participate in that, but there's 17 other project quests you can do as well. And with that, I think we're going to wrap it up, guys. Mark and Drew and Annie and Joanna, thank you so much for joining us today. I had a great time learning about Quix NFT Marketplace.
Thank you so much, Mac.
Thanks
And
so
just
much.
a reminder,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And just a reminder, everybody, we are planning on doing these every Wednesday at 3 p.m. UTC. So we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, stay optimistic and see you on the internet. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, and thank you, Mac.